Sports Show presents House of Rugby.
Hello, my name's Máire Treasa Ní Dhubhghaill and you're all very welcome to House of Rugby. The Rugby World Cup is done and dusted and we're back with URC action and we have a full weekend of games to get through and I'll do that in the company of James Downey and Pat McCarry. How are we doing, lads?
Good, yeah, pretty good. I was just saying my top seems to be getting smaller.
It looks great.
It's like I think it's the wash that's doing it. It's not.
Always blame the wash.
Yeah. Whatever kind of detergent I'm using, I have to kind of
no
cut
softener.
back no softener. Yeah.
James, we're back to URC action. What is it like for the players? A lot of them have returned from the Irish squad now, coming from the Rugby World Cup tournament and that environment back to normal game week now with the URC.
Well, look, for some players, I think they just want to get back on the horse and start playing again because obviously last game was losing that match to the All Blacks, and so it's a case of just get back into it, back into a positive environment, back to their mates, back to their, just getting out there and putting on a jersey again and going for it because it's probably been eating up a few lads. You get to go away, you go on your holidays, you have a lot of time to think about it, and you really just want to get on and get back playing and forget about it.
Well, we'll kick things off by looking back at the first Interpro of the season, Connacht and Ulster in the sports ground on Saturday night. 3 from 3 now from Connacht, and that's the first time in 9 years that they've had 3 from 3 at the start of the season. And when you compare it to the start they had last season, it's a pretty good place to be, sitting top of the table. Yeah,
and I saw it's actually 8 from 8, I think, since the start of the year as well, in the calendar year. They're loving life down in Galway there as well.
And why wouldn't you? What a beautiful part of the world.
And the beautiful pitch they have now as well. And I was kind of saying that just the style, like when you're looking back at even the game itself or even some of the highlights that are going as well, it's like it's worked out well for them. They probably had a bit of time to kind of get used to this pitch and kind of play around with it a bit more, but it's going to make for different types of games. And like the back line has kind of impressed me in their first few games, and that's even before you start plugging back in Bundy Aki and Mac Hansen as well. The exciting times for them, especially with the kind of Wilkins now as the head coach and Scott Fardy and stuff like that being added to it as well.
Muldoon
and
back
Muldoon
again.
back as well.
Mark Sexton.
Yeah, it's all working out well, and I think it bodes well for where they're going. And then that you can kind of see there's no messing around anymore in the URC. You kind of have to hit the ground running if you can, and that's why I felt sorry for Scarlett sending off to South Africa for their first 2 games of the season as well. So you can't mess around anymore. You have to pick up wins when you can, and Connacht have done it the right way. All of a sudden they've got a bit of momentum behind them, so it's good to see. Yeah,
and they're on the road now for the next few weeks. Now, Saturday's game, it wasn't a showcase performance from either side. There was a lot of mistakes, lack of cohesion, and when you compare it to the first 2 games they had, where they had a lot of flow, maybe a bit more structure, but this kind of win will really stand to them, James, and they came back from a 23 deficit to win that game. How did they go about it?
Look, to be honest, I think that's the big point of that whole game is they were expected to beat this Ulster side. It was a young Ulster side, a lot of injuries, and they picked up a few more. But this Connacht side had gone in favourites, and how to deal with that favourites tag is going to be interesting going forward. But third game in a hop at home, they go down and they dug deep and they ground out that victory, and I think it's a case of there's plenty of talent out there. I think young Cathal Ford's been immense for them the last couple of weeks, and you mentioned Pat Bundy's coming back as well. So there's decisions we made, and that's what Pete will want from his players. He'll want to make tough decisions, not be able to just put players back in. They'll have to earn their spot back, and that's what you need, because you see that at the other provinces, potentially stronger provinces, where they have competition, and competition will breed success, and we'll pick it up. But again, the pitch as well is working extremely well for the way Connacht want to play, and we're missing Cordero as well, who's obviously injured when he first went down there, and he was obviously a big marquee signing for them, and they'll miss him, but he's to come back in the fold probably post-Christmas towards the end of the season. But it's exciting times, but it's going to be a different one. 3 home games, 3 away games, tough away games. Edinburgh over to South Africa then as well, in a bit of sunshine, no doubt. But it's going to be tough over there.
Yeah, and Pete Wilkins, after the game, he hailed the character that the players showed to stay with it. And I suppose, speaking of competition, we saw JJ Hanrahan play for them in the first 2 rounds, and he was immense. And then Jack Carty, he didn't have a great game on Saturday, but when it came to it, when they needed leadership and when they needed someone to grab hold of the game and make decisions, he was there, and he showed such composure to get Kilgannon over for that try, and even his kick to touch as well, just to take control of the game.
And that's it. And that was his first game back as well. or first kind of proper proper run out for him as well. Like so, he'll benefit from that as well. And yeah, just like even there, we were mentioning a few players like Tom Farrell has been brilliant for them as well. Like, and he's
that partnership has been immense.
Yeah, like and he's a guy you like. I saw recently he had his 100 cap for them, and even that's with all the injury issues he had, because he was like on the verge of getting into an Ireland squad before he got that he had a couple of serious injuries. So it's like he's back in great form. Everything seems to be going well, but yeah, they still needed to get back, and that's why someone like Jack is just kind of he's ideal for that. And let's even see with this pitch over the next course of the season, will he even benefit from that a little bit more as well? Like, and almost like go back to this. Like I saw some Connacht fans were getting excited because they're like season after World Cup, like back to 2016, and could it be our year again? And like it could be. Like you just have to get momentum. Right? It's all about momentum in this league, and that's why I almost thought the fact that they might go to South Africa might stall that momentum a little bit. But yeah, just pick up the wins where you can, like, and they're doing the job exactly. Yeah,
and it's an intense couple of weeks as well. You know, it's like there's 12 weeks running straight, be it with Europe as well. So you need that squad depth. Jack's first game, JJ's going to play. You've got to have quality. If you lose a couple of players, you've other players to step up. So it's all about that squad depth, especially for Connacht, who normally have pretty good frontliners, and then a couple of years ago, if you lose one or two, you struggle. Yeah. So now it's a case of, right, we've got guys who are ready to step up. It's going to be attritional the next few weeks. So players need to be ready to pop in, and they're all experienced players, which is exciting.
Speaking of squad depth, you mentioned it there. It's worth mentioning again. It was a young, inexperienced Ulster side that came to Galway, and they were missing 11. They made 11 changes. They were missing 19 players before the game, and then to lose Will Addison in the warm-up as well. So they were fairly depleted, and they had control of that game. Now, Connacht had the majority of territory and possession in that first half, but on the scoreboard, Ulster were ahead, and they'll be very frustrated that they couldn't see it through. And I suppose that shows lack of game management maybe in that closing period.
Yeah, and look, I think with Dan McFarland, he will be very frustrated in letting that one go, also going against his former side in Connacht. But I think if you look at it, he's blooding some younger players, take the positives out of it. Jake Flannery, they're really putting a lot into him. They're giving him plenty of game time at 10, which is great for him. So he's got to get used to it. It's only a couple of games in for him. Hopefully they'll give him more. I'm sure they will give him a bit more game time there. And all these young players are getting exposure, but that's the difference again. And we saw with Leinster in week 1 when they played some younger guys, that's the level they have to reach, and they've got to understand that. They were unlucky with some injuries, and I'm sure he will be frustrated, but they were close, and they probably should have. They should have done it. They didn't, but they'll have to regroup, go again, because they don't get any easier.
Jake Flannery, he really has taken that role, that he has gotten 2 starts so far, and he has stepped up to the mark, and it's important for him now to get that continuity, and it's worth giving him that game time. Yeah,
and especially like, with Ian Madigan having to retire then as well, and that kind of, you'd be almost worried in a way like that depth wasn't there for them, like that Munster might be worried about as well now that Carberry's injured, like, so you might think, is this guy going to be able to handle it? But he started off well, like, like he's done all that he can do, like it was interesting to see when Sheridan made that break that you had Shanahan on one side and Flannery on the other, so they knew what they were up to, they know to follow the big guys and stuff, and then to kind of have that kind of confidence to kind of burst on through was good. So that'll do wonders for him. Like, and now I know he's not a young guy as well, but like James Hume, it's good to see him back and in a bit of decent form as well. But Sexton, looked decent. There's some positives for them there. But yeah, if they can get something like a good run out of Flannery, like that'll be massive to them. Yeah.
Another positive they'd take from the game is the dominance they showed at the breakdown as well, because that's an area that Connacht smothered them in when they played the quarterfinal up in Kingspan last year, and that's an area they had targeted. So Dan McFarlane would be happy with the fight the players showed throughout the game there, really. Yeah,
very much so, and I think Dan would understand what it means going to the sports grounds, what Connacht will do. Yeah. Obviously,
what they did against them. Questionable decisions, it has to be said as well.
Yeah, okay, look, but that's part of it, and I think that you get the rub of the green sometimes, but he would have said, look, firstly, you go to the sports grounds, you got to front up, and if you don't, it's going to be a long day at the office, because you know that Connacht are always going to bring that passion. They have a lot more than that now, but ultimately they do have that. Breakdown's always going to be tough. There's some quality players there. But I thought they did extremely well at the breakdown, and he'll be happy enough with that. But it's just about what will disappoint him is just letting it go in the key moments when they should finish a game and they don't. And again, they're all learnings.
Looking at Ulster's season now, we always have such hope and expectation, but when it comes to the closing end of the season, they can't deliver, or they haven't delivered in the past. What would a good season look like for Ulster?
Oh, a good season would probably be a frustrating season for them as well, because it would be getting to the knockouts. Well, maybe again of doing okay in Europe as well, and then kind of getting to the knockout stages as well. But yeah, if they fall short again, they'll be disappointed, because they're always there or thereabouts. They have brilliant home form. They have that rolling maul that kind of works like a dream for them. Like even Tom Stewart and the quick tap penalties. They have a good steady base, but it's always kicking on or pushing on to the next level. And even like we were chatting to Stephen Ferris there before the season started, and it's he was just trying to pick their back row and pick their it's just that's where they're shortest, I suppose. So if a couple of young lads can kind of really become senior players this year, like let's say Cruthers or Sheridan or something like that, if they could establish themselves in the first team, that could be a positive to kind of build on then as well. And then whenever they get kits off then from his parties over in South Africa.
They haven't done a lot of They haven't made a lot of signings. So will they struggle with depth?
I guess we're going to find out now because they're down so many numbers. But again, they're going to have that injection of Irish players back in, the couple of players back. So they're going to hopefully bring a bit of experience back into that side. But again, it's I agree with Pat, and if they can get to kind of knockout stages in Europe, they'll be happy after a while. But I think if you look at the side, they're building a side, they're trusting a new 10, there's a lot of new players in there. Again, they're not going to want to ride a year off, but look, it's going to be a tough season.
Pete Wilkins said that a focus for Connacht now is improving on their away form. They only won 3 out of 9 games away last year. So what are you expecting from them now over the next few weeks? They have Edinburgh away and then 2 games in South Africa, the Bulls and the Sharks.
I suppose, they'll be then targeting Edinburgh. They'll be going there. Edinburgh put out a pretty decent side against Leinster, and they kind of they had a bit of a comeback, but they were handily beaten. So maybe go after them, see if they can get an extra win, and then go and see what you can get from South Africa. Really, just it's not it just depends how those games go. Connacht have gone in the past, even last season, and they gave it a good rattle. When they were in the quarters where they went up against the Stormers as well.
Connacht they beat Ulster in the quarters.
Yeah, and then played the Stormers in the semis. So if they can go and do something like that again, they'll fancy their chance, especially if they can take a bit of win and momentum over it. They'll be looking to kind of come back with a few points anyway from South Africa. But it's a good thing to kind of work on, isn't it? Because the home form is so good. And and as you said, if they can kind of now maybe just if you all of a sudden drop in the likes of Beelum, Hansen and Bundyaki into that thing, maybe save them for South Africa in a way that they'll be kind of almost coming into a fresh, or bring them off the bench against Edinburgh or something. And then you just have lads doing Conor Oliver doing great, Kilgallen, if he gets a clear run, he's at such potential as well. There's a lot going well for them. So if they can, they'll be going to Edinburgh to try and get themselves another win, and then see if they can kind of carry that into South Africa with them as well. A
new coaching ticket, it has to be said again as well. So they'll be pretty pleased with how things have gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a case that Wilkins been there. They've all kind of been in there in some regard, bar maybe John Muldoon, who's been across in Bristol. And Fardy's something different, who will have different ideas. Again, he'll have that Leinster IP of knowing what it takes to win something. And then obviously he's only had a small stint in Japan. But I think even with your Mark Sexton, that's quite smart, promoting from within with the academy. He was in it towards the end of last season as well, so players are getting used to his way of doing things. He's very progressive from what I hear, and players speak very highly. So it's a happy environment, which is great. They're winning, which is great. And now, as we say, the test is Edinburgh and 2 games in South Africa. It's tough, but it's doable, and that's the challenge that Connacht have to do to kick on, to take that next step. Edinburgh's going to be on an artificial pitch again, so it's something they're used to. That's 4 in a row. South Africa, that's going to be a hard ground as well. But South Africa is a tough place to go, but
they'll be missing, of course, their World Cup contingent, though. They're still celebrating, I'm sure.
Yeah, no doubt, and rightly so. But I think Connacht could be quietly confident, especially if you get a result in Edinburgh. your tails are high, and then that's a challenge for the coaching group.
Yeah.
Can we win away from home?
And the Sharks, when you look at their start of the season, they have no points so far. So, they could take a scalp there.
Yeah. It was actually, it was only when you mentioned it. I think the major players that started a lot of them, like played a lot of minutes in France, are probably not going to be back till December then as well.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a good chance.
It's a good time to go there.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. But yeah, Scarlets are a different level because they're just all over the place. Like, so, but yeah, Connacht can kind of go and say, yeah, let's go and kind of like, let's see if we can kind of ride that momentum that James mentioned and kind of take on. It's a great time to play the Sharks. Well, the Sharks particularly, like over in South Africa, because they'll have a lot of their big guys out then as well. So there's an opportunity. Like, I suppose if they can get 2 wins out of those next 3 games, like all kind of away stints, like almost do what Munster did, and kind of like that could kind of make their whole season. They could all of a sudden have themselves a nice platform then after that.
And they'll be in a good position then when Leinster come to town.
Oh my God.
In 4 weeks' time. But looking at Leinster now, they secured their second bonus point win on the trot in the RDS. They beat Edinburgh 36-27. It was a strong Edinburgh side, including Tips Ben Healy. A bit of a scrappy performance from Leinster, but still a job well done.
Yeah, very much so. I before the game, I kind of looked at both sides and said, this is a great opportunity for Edinburgh to try and turn over Leinster. Obviously, they've lost their first game there at the RDS, and they hadn't lost just one game all year last year, so they'd equalled it. So first game up, I thought Edinburgh might have said they're vulnerable. Great opportunity. They started okay, Edinburgh, and then I don't know, their game just fell apart really, and then they opened up again, Edinburgh, in the last 20 minutes, but game was away from them. So credit to Leinster. They brought more experienced players back in, thought they played conditions a lot better. Jamie Osborne's left boot was pretty helpful in those conditions, blustery conditions. And just Leinster just overpowered them really, that experience that they brought back, and they've got plenty of quality. And we see the younger players that they're producing and bringing on, and all getting game time. Prendergast getting game time at 10, Jack Boyle playing at Loosehead getting more game time, Paddy McCarry off the bench. Like there's all these young lads who are getting exposure against quality opposition, against internationals, and they're starting to hold their own. Yeah,
it was a bit of a slow start, as James mentioned there, for Leinster. They were 21-6 ahead at half-time, and they were really clinical, but then Edinburgh rallied and had that comeback in the second period. So what will Leo Cullen take from this game now?
I suppose just, the main takeaway, I suppose, is the performance. It's like, some of these lads are just plugging in so well. And like even there, James Culhan, played number 8, and all of a sudden look like he'd been there for a couple of years. And Barron all of a sudden slotting in for the likes like Sheehan and Kelleher. He's all of a sudden the next one off the lot then as well. Has looked really good. And then Jamie Osborne, as James mentioned again, it's great to see him back. We'll probably touch on Calvin Nash a bit later, but he seems to have used that experience of being in Ireland camp and really kind of just came back, hit the ground running as well. So he'll take a lot from that. The set pieces were kind of going well, mashing themselves over for a couple of tries. So that'll go well. And then I think maybe the big one, is maybe Harry Byrne. He had a couple of nice moments, and I know they had a penalty coming, but that was a brave throw just over Van der Merwe for that De Frawley try as well. Byrne is a guy that if he could, I've mentioned Kilgallen earlier, Harry Byrne can get that run. That Ireland 10 jersey is still up for grabs in a way. So he'll be obviously hoping to, and Prendergast is right behind them, and he had a great kind of kick through as well for one of their, I think the Tommy O'Brien try, wasn't it? But so that position is there. No one owns that Ireland number 10 jersey. So the likes of Ross Byrne, Harry Byrne and Prendergast, it'd be fascinating now over, as James said, we have a stretch of 12 weeks in a row. So anyone can make a play over the next while.
Yeah, they still have a bit to go to reach Leinster standards of play, but it's a good position to be in, that they're winning games and still have these work-ons as well. And I suppose, as Leo Cullen said after the game, the most important thing this time of year is the accumulation of points.
Yeah, exactly. And while their international players have their break and then they come back into it and they filter in, and Leinster gets stronger, whilst down the line towards the end of the season he can game manage his players as much as he can then. And now whether they do or not, given what's happened the last 2 years, that'll be interesting if he decides to rest players come big games, before big games. I don't know if he's going to go with that attitude, but it certainly gets these players exposure, comes up to the level, and he's got quality coming back into it, which is only going to raise standards and be tougher again.
Yeah, 17 players away at the World Cup. Yeah. So, when you think about all the quality that has to come back in. And you would be hoping, as you said there, that they won't slot in straight away, that there is that competition for players now. Like Tommy O'Brien has been amazing since the start of the season.
Certainly has, and he was so unfortunate last year, missed the whole season pretty much with his ACL, so he's come back so strong. But his work rate, his work ethic is second to none. He does everything perfectly nearly, you know. He just grasps, he chases down kicks, he chases down lost causes, and he gets his rewards, you know, and you need those lads on your side, just the hard grafters, and just reward for him that he's getting picked week in, week out. And it's a matter of, does he slot in now when the others come back? And
it's all about this conveyor belt that they have at Leinster to keep it going. It's building depth the whole time. And when these players are called upon to have these games banked, they'll have the confidence to step in.
Like Russell and Turner and stuff like that, who are so kind of handy for the backline. Osborne, like and then like you actually talking about like Tommy O'Brien. I remember like going down to Athlone and Ireland were, you know, when he was in the under-20s, I think he was captain of the under-20s at first stint. He was training with the senior side, and the senior guys were like, a lot of them were very impressed with him as well. And I think that was maybe 4 years ago now. Like, and you would have thought that he was the next guy to really kick on. Where someone like Osborne now was, you know, like in the Irish setup, he's ahead of him in the pecking order. But if Tommy O'Brien can kind of, again, another guy with a clean run ahead of himself, because like, so all of a sudden, like, it's not a clean slate, because this guy's with test kind of quality behind him. But like, if O'Brien can kind of like, if he can have a good solid run of games as well, he can force himself into that Ireland setup as well. Like, because now you can see he's a bit like Ringrose. He's probably better in the centre, but he's playing on the wing now at the moment. So just having guys like that like will be so handy. And then then all of a sudden, like, we're talking about maybe 3 or 4 guys getting dropped into the Connacht team. You're having a whole squad coming back to kind of play for Leinster as well. Like, so just exciting times for them. But the likes of Deegan and Penny are doing a good job. Like, and there'll be lads kind of like, it'd be interesting to see training. I suppose, James, if you've kind of ever experienced that, like, you know, when the big boys come back from, you know, test camp and you're like, oh, hold on, I've been playing well here. Like, you know how it goes.
I think it's a case of that you've got the jersey, and I think the staff, especially the players, be very aware that the players are coming back, and it's a case of, okay, well, they're not just going to take it, they've got to earn it back. Okay, some of that can be just, but it's such and such or whatever, you know, but there is a case of the player goes, well, I'm in here, and that's where it comes up to Leo's management now of how many he drops in. Does he drop everyone in? Because if you saw what the Scottish sides did, they did half their contingent back, played the first couple of weeks, then they'll go away, have a break, and the other half will come back. So they've kind of drip fed their players in, so they weren't pretty weak at the start, and Leinster will have to manage that and manage it quite
and
well.
It's a tricky enough period for Leo Cullen and the management team as well, because Stuart Lancaster is gone. They're still waiting for Jacques Nienaber to come in, so they're still in this transitional period. Yeah,
and that's tough again, like, because they'll have had different coaches, and Andrew Goodman coming back in kind of halfway, and you've had different coaches. And someone might have a different mindset. And Jacques Nienaber, as we know, has a certain way of defending with South Africa, different way with Munster. So are they going to bring that system in where they're shooting from the outside in? And like, there's a lot of things up in the air, and there's a lot of learnings. And Leinster with Jack coming in can only get better.
Yeah, it's a huge coup for Leinster to have a double World Cup winning head coach coming into the team now. What will he add to the Leinster environment?
You just, like, do you talk to any of the guys who, when he was down at Munster, and just like some of the speeches that he'd be given, you would hear, like, you know, and telling them like what it meant to go win the ball at the breakdown, and you're doing it for your family, and you know, like, and you know, like, that would work for some guys. Some guys might be like, hey, I'm just here to play a match, like, but like some guys that really, like, he'd feed into that, and you could just see with South Africa, like, you know, there's some great kind of like analysis after World Cup of just how like rabid their defense almost was, and kind of the pride they took in that as well. And you have your kind of like your kind of leaders kind of in different kind of units going around, kind of, and like Peter Steph Dutour or something like that. And like, so he might see things that he might already have looked at the Ireland game, even though Ireland shaded it in that game, or he'll have looked at Leinster last season and he'll be looking at, this guy can even, he, like, in his opinion, can improve, or I'll give this guy another role as well. Like, so and defense is his kind of big thing as well. Like, and like Leinster aren't short in many areas. Like, you know, it's like they're just that far away the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
you know, like, so.
I have it written down here. Against La Rochelle last year, they were beaten by 1 point, 2 points. 2 points by Munster in the semi-final, 3 points the year before in last year's final, and 1 point against the Bulls in the semi-final. So they're so close. They couldn't be any closer. But if they could bottle some of that Springbok mentality and that, you know, I suppose resilience that they have and bring it into a Leinster team, like, it's scary what they can achieve.
It is, and it's such a game of small margins, you know. And if Leinster get to rub of the green on one or two occasions, we have a different conversation, you know. And I think it's with Jack coming in, the defence wins championships. You know, you can have the best attack in the world. If you can keep a team out, it's priceless to you. And I think that's, if you look at the Glasgow game, week 1, Leinster's defence is pretty poor. Again, against Edinburgh, fine for most of the game, but when the games that make a few changes in the games, you're comfortable. Yeah. Edinburgh come back into it, and he won't have that. Defence is an attitude, so he's going to be working on the players' mindsets, not being ruthless out there, and not letting teams score and get over for easy scores, like winning by 40 points. That's what he's going to want. And again, that can only make this Leinster team strong. And again, coming down to these big game fixtures that they've lost by 1 score.
It's Cup Rugby, and the Springboks know how to win. They don't know how to lose, is another way of framing it. And they only conceded 8 tries throughout the whole World Cup. So defence is definitely going to be a focus point for Jacques Nienaber. And I suppose that's where Leo Cullen will want him to focus his energy. But has that been the missing part in these Cup games that Leinster have lost? Yeah,
like it's that kind of, like, that loss of control maybe in the second half of games. Or it's like, well, I suppose the big ones that they have lost, well, they lost to Bulls, and then they lost to, and it's all about the physicality. That's the big thing that everyone says. It's like La Rochelle are just a physically bigger side, like Will Skelton, just like superhuman against them, and like the likes of like Antonio coming off the, like, you know, the bench on them and stuff like that. Like they're just these big guys coming at them, and Leinster's big thing was like, they just got pounded, and then they just couldn't hold them out. So how do you kind of fight that smart, or, you know, like, or what guys kind of have to kind of come forward and lead the line, and who are going to be your leaders and stuff. And so it's that kind of thing where, and then it's like, it's in the middle of all that, like, yeah, you need your smart decision makers as well. Like, who's going to get you out of trouble, or who's the guy who's going to make the call or bring it on him? Because you saw in that Champions Cup final where, like, they just, every time they had a chance to clear their lines, they'd fluff it, they'd shank a kick out or something like that, and or somebody would drop a ball. Like, so it's that kind of like drilling that into focus. Now, like, how much can you do that in training, like, and really put each other under pressure? Like, but like the handy thing is like that they just look at Ireland almost in a really, like, they have South Africa, he can take some of his learnings for that, but Ireland are pretty strong defensively as well. Like, and you saw that even in the game where they kind of held out the South Africans as well. So like the building blocks are there. Like, so if he can come in and just make a couple of tweaks, that's what everybody's hoping for. It could make a big difference.
It has been such fine margins for Leinster when it comes to the business end of the season. Versatile players like Jamie Osborne and Kieran Frawley might be very excited about the prospect of Jacques coming in as well, with South Africa's approach to versatility.
Yeah, I think so. I think these players get to a stage in their career where they want to start fitting in somewhere, and it's fine when you're young and you're kind of like get a little bit of exposure, and then you sit back when the internationals come back. They'll want to push themselves on and play. And like you mentioned, loads of the 10s earlier, Pat. And we probably forgot, like, Frawley's there as well, who can slot in. And he slot in at midfield, and he's probably going, well, I want some game time at 10 as well. And I'm going in at centre as well. Sometimes you can fall into that, a master, you know, of
George Jack of all trades.
Exactly, master of none. But like, it's not that they're not, but it's a case of he's versatility. It'll probably get him on the bench or something. Look at a Jimmy O'Brien. He's versatile. Does he nail down one slot? He probably should, but where is it? He's another one who's a 13 as well initially. Yeah. So like, there's plenty of quality players who will be demanding game time, and I wouldn't like to be picking those teams every week.
Next week for Leinster, they're on the road against the Dragons. They were dispatched easily enough by Munster down in Cork last week. But it's worth reminding people that Munster were beaten by the Dragons last year in Rodney Parade. And Leinster have struggled in the past there, but is it a straightforward enough win for them?
It should be, yeah. Like, and they probably will filter. I wouldn't say you wouldn't see all the Irish guys back, but you'll probably get 5 or 6 or something like that to kind of, they might do it similar, like just kind of filter them in over the next couple of weeks. But it should be. I remember that game, last year, and I remember Fekitoa struggled in that game. And O'Mahony kind of was, I think he was injured, and they targeted him for one, because Rio Dyer was just kind of class act, like, for them. Like, but I remember like and that was back when Munster we were all worried about, and kind of like, and then they ended up going and winning the league. Like, but that's a place where Johnny Sexton never play over there once in his career over there. You didn't used to see a lot of the Irish guys making the trip over, but they'd always have enough in the tank. They should do as well. Like, they should go over and get a result, and it'll be interesting to kind of see. I suppose that'll be it. Like, is there any stuff to work on? Is there other couple of guys like the facts that, like, it's interesting to see Penny is kind of getting a lot of time and a lot of minutes, and they've kind of placed a lot of responsibility on him over the summer, like had him captain and the side in one of the preseason games as well. Like, so, a few of those guys would be looking to kind of impress, because you might have the likes of, you normally see it at the RDS or something, but you'll see a whole international squad of players out on the bench or something. So if they're looking over to the sideline, they might see like a few of the big guys back from the World Cup. So, here's your last chance to almost kind of go out and give it a crack, and then you start bringing them in. But I wouldn't be I don't think I've ever been too fearful of an Irish side playing against Dragons.
Well, you say that now. If we turn our focus to Munster now, the reigning champions, they go into this season now with a target on their backs, and they've hit the ground running, really. The performance wasn't the best against Benetton, but they're in a pretty good position, sitting second on the table. Yeah,
and look, I guess when you're champions as well, you got to grind out some results, and it was tough over there. I've never seen as many errors as I had, but they recovered, they got a result, and you move on with it. Like, I think the unfortunate thing is now Joey Carberry had been playing extremely well, had a great chance, and now he's just been struck down with injury again, which is so frustrating for him. You've Tony Butler, who steps up in the academy and gets a go, but it's what an opportunity, as I saw it, for Joey to really kick on it, and just kind of with Jack coming back.
Man of the match performance in the first game there in Thomond Park.
But look, Munster ground out, and they did enough. But like we mentioned, Calvin Ash, he's been in superb form, and he's put the disappointment of not making a World Cup squad. Came back, great attitude, and it has shown that he's one of the top players down there now.
They crossed the whitewash 7 times on Saturday in Cork, and Graham Rowntree, as he did last year, he put his faith in the young guns. He had 7 academy players in that team, and they've really stepped up.
What is it? But even so, it was Ben O'Connor was on the bench as well, and everyone's excited about Brian, like Gleeson, like who's done so well for the under-20s, and when you look at him, he's only 19 years old. Like, he's such a physical specimen. He's so strong, and he just looks so comfortable. Yeah, it's the idea of like no, again, like you have like Kendall and like you might, but like the idea of putting like Gleeson and Coombs in a back row together is kind of very exciting, like for a Munster fan, because like Coombs for his try just took around 3 lads over the line with him as well, and he's a guy who kind of, like, will he ever get that chance with Ireland? Like, like he does everything he can for Munster, like, and but Gleeson is kind of like, I think Zebo talked about him doing a bit of training with the senior guys, and he's just coming in almost a bit like Ty Byrne used to do when you heard about him being a young guy at Leinster, like just coming in poaching and kind of getting stuck in and having like no bother to him, like, and so that's great for them, and then they're all excited about like Ruan Quinn as well, like, so they're all of a sudden it's a very exciting time for Munster, like, they did some great work, because they almost, like, the academy wasn't producing that many people for a while, and now all of a sudden it is like there's almost like 4 or 5 lads coming through every year, like, so like everyone's been talking about Ian Costello and the work he did in the academy, and they train with the senior team as well, and Graham Rowntree's motto has been, if you're young enough, you're good enough, and he showed that with Tony Butler, because he didn't go off and get a short-term signing with Carberry out injured, and he put faith in him. How did you think he did?
You're pretty impressed with him, it's like, I'm sure it was on his mind of I know he'd been travelling reserve for the last couple of weeks, and they'd been using Rory Scannell as the backup 10, so for him to get a chance to go in there, I think it'll lose confidence the world of good, obviously Jack is back now as well, again, Graham has to manage that, and kind of, does he just slot Jack back in, gave him a few minutes, but you can give the guy a bit of confidence and ride the momentum of it, Again, it's going to be tough how he does it, but these young guys getting exposure, as you say, Pat, there's plenty of quality coming out of that academy, which can only be good. And you got to push players on, and again, standards rise when you've got young guys chomping at the bit behind you. Well, we have to push you on now, James. You have to run out the door. He's a busy man. James, thanks a million for being with us. Pat, you'll stick with us for another while? Will do, yeah. So, Pat, the only one left with me now. Homegrown players, as we mentioned, has been a huge focus for Graham Rowntree, and you mentioned Ruan Quinn there, but that second row partnership of Adogbo and Ahern has been working so well together. They're both so physical, so strong, but they've got the hands they've shown as well with the slick passes, the offloads and everything. And when you look at R.G. Snyman, injured again, he's going to be on the sideline. He's so unfortunate when you saw what he can do
when he came off the bench for South Africa. But to have these players now and to have that partnership in the second row for a period is huge for Munster. And it's incredible that these young players are coming into a winning side.
Yeah. Like it's, I think I was chatting to CJ Stander there like a couple of months back, and he was just talking about like just how when he was over like commentating, I think it was for SuperSport at the final between the Stormers and Munster, and he was just saying that just like you saw these lads as young lads, and now they've come on, and you know, like they've almost like he was saying they've grown up so much in the space of like since even he was there, like in a year or two, and like like there's so much potential there, like in them, and but yeah, like it's like I suppose again you're looking at, I know Snyman might be out again maybe till the new year, but like you have Klein as well like that, and like they have like if you have that as a unit, keep them all together, it's great, but to be able to have a Dogbo who kind of and. It's almost like this raw potential. Like a Heron seems to be maybe a tiny bit further on, but a Dogbo is kind of just like scary potential. Like you know, like so. And Roundtree, like it must be so great to be a young guy down there. Like to see that. They're not going on names. Like if you go and you kind of front up against the lads in training and stuff, you'll get your chance. Like,
and that's the thing. These players know that if they play well enough, they're going to be given the chance. And even when things were going against Munster last year, Roundtree and his coaching ticket, they stuck to their guns and they did that, and they awarded players, and for players to know that and to have that confidence and to know they're not going to be beaten if they try things and they don't work out. The confidence is put into the players. They're given that responsibility and they're taking their chances.
Yeah. Like, and it'll be so interesting, like, you know, when they have their interpros and stuff this year, and like that they're the champions now as well. And as you said, like they're how they carry themselves, and then having the big lads drop back in, and you know, you wonder kind of like they have it like senior players, like I know Earls is gone now, but like Zebo, Murray, O'Mahony, like how long are they going to stick around for? Like, or is this the season where they kind of like hand it off to the younger lads then as well? Like, so, but there definitely seems to be like the confidence that would have given them. Like, and Crowley, like, is a young lad, but Crowley feels like he's been playing for a few years. He carries himself again like that kind of guy who's the leader, like, and these lads will have benefited, because like the worst thing you want to do, and that's why even the Leinster lads might have worried when they lost that first game of the season, is like when you want the big lads coming back in, you want to be kind of showing them that, like, you know, you've put a win and run together, you've put in good performances, and yeah, like that, how much is that going to benefit all these guys now, like that, like like a Dogbo and a Heron, like it's so promising, isn't it?
And although I suppose the pressure for a trophy weight is off now, the monkey's off their back. Munster won't want this season to be, or won't want last season to be a flash in the pan. They'll want to build on that. They'll want to try new things. How far can they go this season? It's very hard to back up a trophy winning season. But what would you predict for Munster?
Like I was talking like when James earlier, like when James kind of came in and we were getting ready for the show, and I was saying I wonder if sides will look at what Munster did last year and kind of try and time a run for like the end of the season, because that all of a sudden they went to South Africa. You know, we were on House of Rugby last season before they played that first game of South Africa, saying this is on the verge of being one of their worst seasons, and they went, picked up a couple of wins, knocked over Leinster on the way to winning, you know, going to South Africa again.
Big Glasgow on the road as well.
Incredible run of results, and they just turned it all around so much. So that's going to stand for them. Now what they have to do in Europe as well is they've got a good seeding then because of that. So then they have to take advantage of that then as well. And so like Europe, they won't be getting too ahead of themselves, but they'll probably say to themselves, could they do something in Europe? And they might see how the first couple of results go for them as well. But that, and then just defending, like Roundtree will want improvements as well. Like, and those young lads are now like not only got a year more experience under the belt, but they're also champions as well. Yeah. Like, so he'll want to see them carry themselves like that a little bit. So those interpros would be kind of fascinating to watch as well.
Yeah, as Graham Roundtree said after the game last week, he doesn't want them to stand still now. They have to keep moving. What are their main areas of focus looking at the first 3 rounds?
It's interesting. Like the centres, like Frisch is someone who, like, we're already talking about guys who kind of could maybe break into the Irish setup. Like Frisch is someone, like, he missed the game there at the weekend, but like that partnership, which probably, like, you have Sean O'Brien who's come over from Exeter, you have Nankivell then who came over from New Zealand, and then you have Frisch, and then Scannell might, as you said, cover a few of these positions. Like, but yeah, the centre partnerships, if they can get kind of an established kind of setup there, if they can get Conway back, now that especially the Earls is gone, like Daly is already looking good because like Haley's out then as well. Like, so there's a kind of few guys that it's a big chance for them almost. Like, Conway will come back, and like Calvin Nash again. Like, you're looking for lads to kick on to the next level. Like, An interesting guy for me would be someone like Kendallin, like who kind of is again highly rated. Like I said, like Jack O'Donoghue doesn't ever seem to be like his window seems to have closed with Ireland, but is still a great provincial player. But someone like Kendallin could kind of come on and kick on again this season. Like so, they'll be just looking at a few players to kind of see if like. Because that experienced core that Munster had for so long, they are going to move on. Like Earls has moved on. Like who knows how much O'Mahony might play for Munster this season. So then who's going to kind of kick on there? Like so, yeah, those lads. It's like if they can really front up in a few really big games, then that's what Roundtree will be looking to see. Like so, it's time for. It's strange to say because they're the champions, like. But if they can see more guys stepping up, that's what he'll be like. Yeah, if you can get 4 or 5 guys that you can start saying these are on the team sheet every week, he'd be delighted with that.
Their biggest test of the season so far comes on Friday night. The first Interpro, they face Ulster, a team they beat in Belfast last year. It's always a fiery encounter when these two sides come head to head. What are you expecting?
It'd be like. Yeah, like I think Ulster are I think they need any players they can bring back. I'd be interested. I'd be interested to see what the update is on Addison or something else because he's such a he's
so unfortunate with injuries.
Yeah, and it was all like different ones, and he was back, and I think himself and his partner they'd welcomed the baby, and he was back playing again. You were delighted for him because he's such a nice guy as well. Like so, hopefully nothing too bad with them. But they have O'Toole's out, but they have Henderson and Herring to come back in. Like it's good to see Stockdale scoring again, isn't it? Like tries again and looking decent. So there's some positives there for them, but and then it'll be interesting to see how many people Munster bring back into the mix as well. But this will be like I've even said I've been guilty of almost like a bit of post World Cup hangover myself, like where you're like, okay, like it's like I'm sure it's the same for some of the players. Like let's get into this again. Here we go. But a big game like Munster and Ulster will really help there. And as you said, there's always a little bit of bite there between the sides. Like so, almost if we can get that in the first 15-20 minutes, we'll be happy, and it'll help tee things up for us. Yeah.
With our Irish caps on now, we're at the start of a 4-year cycle. I know it feels like a very long way away now looking ahead to the next World Cup, but a lot of standout performances in these first 3 weeks from an Irish perspective. Who has stood out for you? I know we've mentioned a few names so far, but if I was to push you for 3 players.
Excited. I have like, I'm trying to think of like Deegan again. Like Deegan, like Max Deegan is a guy who I would have just like I think he's got maybe 1-2 Ireland caps, like, but I would have put my house on him like a few years back. He was in the same kind of
wasn't he player of the tournament in that under-20s championship?
Yeah, because he was at the same crop as like Porter and Stockdale and he
James Ryan.
Yeah, and he looked like he was going to be the guy, and then he had those kind of issues with like how much weight do I put on here and do I still kind of retain that kind of athleticism. So someone like him, like there still is a chance. Like when you see that like Irish back row, it's like, you have Doris, you have Van der Fleer, you have O'Mahony, how long he's going to be around for, and then you have Jack Conan. Like so, there's an opportunity for someone else to push themselves in there as well. Like so, someone like Max Deegan, Stockdale, like will he ever get back to those levels again? Like I remember even talking to like some professionals, and it's that kind of breakout 2 years that he had, 2017 and 2018. And they were just amazed at how everything was bouncing his way. If he chipped it, and they were like, surely that luck is going to run out. But he's, I don't know, he seems like in a better place mentally anyway. And he's kind of maybe realised that, like, I suppose it's hard when you're a rising star as well, but like that maybe rugby isn't the be all and end all.
He was brought into camp just very recently before the World Cup, you know.
And it goes to show, the Farrell, and they like him in the squad, like, so they think there's potential in him there, like, so. But I was excited at the weekend to see Jamie Osborne then as well. Like, so he again was another guy. I suppose if we're ever talking about a rugby player, injuries is just something you always have to mention. But like, he was looking like he was gonna get his Ireland like debut like this time last year, because he started the season off like a rocket. So if he can come on again and do well, like there's all of a sudden, because we were only talking about it ourselves yesterday in the office here, like for Sports Joe, like we were saying that wingers, like you had Mac Hansen and James Lowe, but then after that, like it's. Like Balakoon was supposed to be the next guy, but then he kind of fell out of favour. Stockdale's kind of there, but you would never put him in. Like, so who's going to challenge the likes of Lowe and Hansen?
Jimmy
like,
O'Brien, I'm sure he'll feel that he didn't get enough game time during the World Cup, and even Lindsay was saying it on last week's show. Every time he got the ball, he looked so dangerous.
Yeah, like didn't he do so well when he finally got his chance?
Yeah.
I think we would do a thing where we select teams. I think I was selecting him in every team like each week, because I kept thinking he was going to get his chance. Like, so it was good that he acquitted himself well when he did. And yeah, he's a guy who's really come on as well. The one thing, yeah, like I was kind of even saying from an Irish perspective, was who's going to be Hugo Keenan's competition and who's going to be like loosehead, like competition for Andrew Porter as well. Because you saw, as good as Andrew Porter was, like it just went against him in that quarter final where penalties started going against him, and like we often leave him on. He's like our version of Bongi. Like the South Africans, like you flog him for like 65, 75 minutes. But who's gonna, like with Keane Healy being injured, all of a sudden we were really short. Like so, I'm trying to even think of the likes of like Paddy McCarthy, like a young guy like at Leinster or something like that, or Buckley down at Munster. Like if you can have someone like that, maybe bring him into the squad over the next while. And then like I would have always thought Mike Haley as a backup for Hugo Keenan, but he's injured now. So again, does that fall on Jimmy O'Brien again? And as James was mentioning, like you have your guys who cover every position, but they're not an expert in one. But yeah, like who's going to be Hugo Keenan's backup? Because we could do with maybe giving someone a couple of games in the next year or so. So just keep an eye out for that, I'd say.
And of course, the Big 10 question, but we'll revisit that again.
It's a bonus episode, yeah.
Before we finish up, another bit of news, of course, is that David Humphreys has recently been appointed as Performance Director of the IRFU. He succeeds David Nucifora. A great opportunity for him. There was talk of Razzie, there was talk of Joe Schmidt. Does he feel like the right fit? Yeah,
like, and like it makes sense when you heard about it, like because I was at a game, like an Ireland game, and like walking into down Lansdowne Road, and I saw David Humphreys just outside the stadium, and it was so funny to me as someone who grew up watching the kind of Humphreys versus Rog battles and stuff, and those games in Paris where like O'Driscoll got the hat trick and stuff, and Humphreys was so crucial in that game, and like so it's almost like this guy that you grew up like. Brilliant player, but he was walking down the road and like no one was near him or looking for autographs. And I was like, that's strange. That's David Humphreys over there. Little did I know he's probably over for a job interview that day or doing a bit of like research. Like, but like really good, like really well respected. Like, did a good job when he was up at Ulster as well. Then went to Gloucester, almost been out of the picture a little bit recently. That's maybe why it surprised a few people. But like Nucifora, like definitely in terms of like what Ireland are doing and the kind of relationship we had with the senior men's side and then the sevens has worked really well. Like so, the one thing maybe Nucifora is probably the what would you call it? Like the flaw maybe in a system was the women's setup and how that was all going, and like that was under his watch as well. Like so, they've made improvements there as well. Like it's still not there fixed yet. Like at least the women went on and. Won the kind of the third division of the WXV as well. Like, but if Humphreys can help there, that'd be great. Like Nucifora did seem to have his eye drawn, like this is my view now, like towards the men's game and stuff, and that's probably where the money is coming in and stuff. But if Humphreys can kind of make a few improvements again,
and the club game as well, I suppose, needs a bit of love because they probably felt that they didn't get as much care and attention as they should have, and that has kind of fallen with the women's game as well. Yeah,
like, and you even saw like the AIL final there last year as well, and a few guys were like, there wasn't a talk about it, like there were when Terry Muir were kind of playing, and they were kind of just saying like just lads here up against like Soroka was playing and a couple of kind of former kind of provincial players as well, and like there's a chance there, like maybe like
Dylan Donlan has proved that.
Yeah, like and like so is there another way of looking at that where like there's a pat back in, or like you can watch that a bit more closely? Should there not be this big gigantic leap between the levels as well? Like so like and the kind of talent is there. So if there are two things that he can improve on, and then every put at the top of his list as a World Cup semi-final again in 4 years time or something. But like it's Nucifora, like I suppose you'd ultimately be look back on the guy who kind of laid a lot of positive foundations as well, like and Humphreys, like again from talking to people behind the scenes, seems to be a guy who kind of is very much clued in, like so.
Well, he comes into the role with a lot of experience as a former player, director of rugby, and his most recent role there with the England and Wales Cricket Board. So with all that experience and his experience on the ground, you'd imagine that he'll have all that experience bagged to bring it into this role, because it's a huge role and it's a huge responsibility. Yeah, and
it's like what they're starting to do is very interesting, like because it's this talent pool where like we were all sitting down talking to David Nucifora around this time last year, and there was talk of like emerging Ireland, and people complained when they sent him off to South Africa, but then you had like the likes of Calvin Nash and Frawley or whatever would come through, and like you would have lads then would end up playing for Ireland then off the back of it, and there's talk about doing that again maybe this year, like doing another little kind of mini tour and getting everybody together and giving coaches experience, like Wilkins had the experience when he went to New Zealand. Like, so it's kind of future planning. Like the likes of even, they're talking about maybe going to play teams in New Zealand, going to play teams in France as well, and like giving games to these guys and kind of building up that pool. Like, so there's lots
and making
there.
the unpopular decision.
Yeah, because that was not, like I was probably one of the people giving out about it. Because like, it takes away from the URC a little bit, where like, okay, we're going to need these players to go off and play the Griquas, down in South Africa, like, or the Cheetahs as well, like, but like they're needed for their provinces, like, but they're kind of saying there's a bigger goal here we're aiming towards, and so as you said, sometimes you have to you have to take the flak and you have to come forward and just but the good thing is, I suppose Nusafora as well was like, he used to have a couple of these kind of briefings, and like you could ask him any question you wanted and he might not give you the answer you wanted as well, like, but at least he kind of was visible, like, which is important too. What
will David Humphrey's biggest challenge be, do you think?
Well, I mentioned the women's game there as well, like again, like you're not, you can't control everything, like, like what women's rugby is kind of needs is like I'd love some kind of like European club competition, like where like even they go challenge themselves against English sides or a couple of French sides as well. Like, so if they could kind of kick that on, like I know the URC, like Martin and I has spoken about it, like having like a women's URC or something, but they've already done it. I suppose with the Interpros, it's a decent competition as well, but you just kind of need more games for
more game time, and that's I suppose why the WXV was brought about, that they have more game time now. I don't know how much that will have benefited Ireland. Now they did finish top of their group and they will be in tier 2 next year, so they need competitive fixtures. So that's a big one for them. And then like it's how, I suppose it's Ireland's, it's a problem, but it's great. It's like, it's the backlog of players coming through. Like, and like, remember, we had even talked last year of like, when Nusafara was up of saying like, because London Irish were in trouble at the time, and you're like, do you want to take over London Irish? And like, it was the whole idea of a 5th Irish province as well. Like, but it's like, how do you keep these young guys in the game? Like, and maybe that is having the club, competition. Like, like a lot of clubs, like young Munster and Garryowen would love to kind of have a bit of elevation again, or players, maybe that filter, like you can go back and forth between your clubs as well, like, and giving that a little bit more shine if they could, like, because there is no real A competition anymore, like, so all you're having to do is these emerging tours, like, so if they can come up with some kind of other meaningful competition to give these guys decent game time, because like, as like somebody had even said there, like, that the likes of English clubs and Welsh clubs will be looking at the Irish players coming out of the academies. If they're not getting games, they'll be like, come, like, here's a fully developed player, you come play for us now. Like, so they have to kind of have a bit of a pathway as well, like, and give game time, like, for the men and the women. So I don't know. And the women's game as well. Like, I think he'll have to relook at the contracts as well.
Yeah, well, that's
it. It's not sustainable the way they are at the moment.
Yeah, it's either kind of, it's this or nothing. Like, so can they be a bit more flexible? Like, there's a lot of really good players that have like jobs that kind of, like, like maybe in time they could filter that out, but it seems to be kind of like, this is the way, or that's it, and you have to live up in Dublin, or like, so.
Well, I don't envy his position, but
I know, the more you talk about it, the more tough it gets.
But it is exciting, and it feels like the right time for Ireland. Well, thank you, Pat. Thank you to James, who has left us. That's all we have time for on today's show. A very exciting start to the URC season, and the Irish teams have hit their straps already. We'll be back on House of Rugby next week. Until then, from Pat and James, who has left us, Slán go fóill.
Sports Show presents House of Rugby.